Hi, this is Maylee Zonda. I'm getting a little bit better at doing these videos. Try to smile a little bit more and not say hi in a really tiny voice. Anyway, this video I'm doing is about what it was like for me to be a child with autism and for me to be a person who has Asperger's now, and how important it is to get our children tested early, especially if you have any, if you're finding that you have traits of Asperger's, you can get yourself tested, and definitely get your children tested early, because children after about 3 years old are really learning to mimic behaviors to accommodate the people in their world, particularly their parents and their teachers. They start recognizing feelings of discomfort and alleviation and what they can do to alleviate. And for myself, I don't believe that completely learning how to become functional, which is that funny word that I really feel a lot of feelings with it. I learned to become functional, but I didn't learn to become normal. I swapped some things that I used to do for things that typical people do, or things that are considered normal, but the relief that doing those anti-typical behaviors gave me was lost, so the stress that I needed to relieve didn't get treated in any way. It was transferred, and how it was transferred into depression. And because I no longer had a way of relieving myself of or comforting myself, and I don't encourage teaching people who have autism or Asperger's to become typical. I encourage people who are typical to accommodate people who have Asperger's and autism, or any other difference, whether it's a syndrome or not a syndrome. It needs to be accommodated. Typical people want to be accommodated. They like their typical lifestyle, and we accommodate them. Most often, typical people are accommodated, and that's kind of unfair, because people with autism or handicaps or different types of things have to get around in their world and make accommodations to them so that they're happy. You know, a noise in a classroom begins to bother a child who has autism, and the teacher wants them to conform and behave and sit down and have really no ability to relieve themselves of the discomfort that they're going through. And I know that some teachers, especially for my daughter, will allow her to go out of the room if the noise is too loud. They allow her visual stimulation in addition to the audio in her classroom. And if she wants to cover her ears, they let her do that. And I'm really thankful to them for not indulging themselves in ignorance and forcing somebody else to accommodate what they feel uncomfortable with, you know, and conform so that they can feel comfortable. And that, to me, is a disorder. If you feel uncomfortable when someone else feels uncomfortable, and you feel so impulsed to modify their behavior instead of your own, then you have a problem that you need to address, and there's an issue you're dealing with. And so I encourage people to have tolerance for all types of differences, and get along, and let people be what they are, and don't think of everything as a cure. It needs a cure. There's so many things. I'm sure they would have tried to find a cure for dark skin, right? Or tried to find a cure for everything, and I just feel that is so unfair. I think rather than finding a cure for everything, naming everything that's different needs a cure, what we need to do is start looking at the person who's different and say, what do they bring? They bring this, they bring that, and this is eye-opening, or this is a contribution to human society, and look what it's doing. And maybe we wear a brand, a name, or something, and people who have done that in history, some people who are different or not the same as the majority have had to wear brands, have had to wear names, and still do to this day. And that's an uncomfortable thing to have to do, but they have done it with dignity and deserve acknowledgement and their rightful place in this world. Everybody who has had to wear a brand, a label, be a minority of any type, deserves their rightful place and deserves the credit for having taken a lower station at the elevation of others, and that should be acknowledged. And so now also what I want to talk about is what it was like for me to be autistic and not only have these traits but also have parents who had them. I was called a good baby, and the reason I was called a good baby was because I was quiet and could stay in my bed for hours and hours and hours without crying or being disturbed. My mother would tell me that the only time I cried was when my diaper was really dirty, and as an autistic parent, it was hard for her to stay on task with schedules and other people's needs. And so, I had rashes and things that, because of it, and she didn't know that she had autism. She, as a little girl, had to be leashed in a time when it was ridiculed to do that to your child, because she would run down to the fire station a few blocks away and cross a busy street to go see the fire trucks. In my room, I was complete. I could play for hours and hours. I had a typewriter. I learned everything there was about it at 5 years old. My interest was that, and was sewing. I had a light bright, and I could stay there for hours pushing the pegs in and making designs. I liked to go in closets and with a flashlight or something, and I could stay there. I would worry my parents because they didn't know where I was, and they would come and look for me. Well, my mother didn't respond appropriately. She had other issues besides being autistic, and taught me not to go in there by kind of closing me in, not letting me come out when I wanted to, and that frightened me. The same incident happened when I liked to go in my toy box. I would pull all of my toys out of my toy box and climb in there and be in my own little world away where I could hear people but they couldn't hear me. And so I got kept in there one time when I didn't want to be, and that was the last time that I really did things like that. I liked going under the bed, and I talked with my little hands one to the other like they were little characters, and would fall asleep doing that. My sleep was very light. I would wake up at any little sound Even the moon shining through my window would wake me up. It would go right through my eyelids, and I could not sleep. If the water in the bathroom was dripping, I could hear it. I could hear most of the time my mother and father talking. And I have memories all the way back to being an infant, being unable to, too small to walk, and remembering the things that I thought. I can remember laying in my crib in a little sacky pajama and could not crawl yet, but I remember the smell of my bed and the feeling of my sheet. I remember my mother putting me down one time, saying she's fallen asleep. I need to put her down, and just becoming extremely upset that they didn't want me is what I thought, and they were putting me back in my bed, and I curled up my little legs underneath me and just wanted to scream. I was getting ready to scream. And another time I can remember putting my little legs up underneath me and thinking, why does this feel good? I was kind of in a little on my tummy fetal position, and then stretching my feet out and thinking that doesn't feel as good as this, and then I pull my legs back up. Asking my mom for little shoes that I'd outgrown, and she couldn't even understand me. I couldn't talk yet. On the issue of talking, I hear a lot of people saying autistic people can't talk. I think it's not that they can't talk, it's that communicating and making that emotional connection to somebody else is extremely powerful feeling to us. And I remember hiding behind my parents' legs and being pulled by the arm out from behind them to be proper and give a proper greeting to somebody who didn't have any clue what autism was. And, having to say hi, it was devastating. It felt hard, and not that I can't. I didn't want to. I wanted to see them. I wanted to observe them before I was willing to communicate and let them into my world, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I think the lack of allowing a child the ability to respond in a way that gives them security tears down these protective walls that can actually protect them as they get older. And I don't force my kids to say hello to people, and I think I had at times before I realized I had autism, but I've had more children since, and I don't do that to them. They don't feel comfortable. I don't want to tear down their mechanisms of safety, and that'll come down on their own in time. There's no need to force it. One of the other things I loved doing was spinning wheels, turn my bike upside down and spin the tire, and kind of let my eyes go into a daze and just gather that feeling on the laundromat. When my grandmother would take me, I'd like to put my face up close to the dryer and just kind of go into a daisy stare and feel the feeling of, it felt like I was twirling myself, and I did a lot of that. I used to twirl. I would take off to the school. I found a place in the grass on the school grounds where there was no obstacles, and I think I was going around like a whirling dervish. I mean, until I was just flying on air almost, twirling and twirling and twirling, and I was kind of self-conscious that other people would see me doing this, but it was just such a good feeling to do it that I had no self-control at 9 years old and 10 years old. And so I go home and ask my mom kind of nervously, can anything happen to me if I twirl this much? And she told me, well, maybe you could get some inner ear damage, and being really self-regarded, self-protective and self-caring, I said I don't want ear damage. And little by little I stopped. My whole life I tiptoed on my toes, couldn't stand the feeling of the floor. It was cold. I don't like the texture of rugs, but it's just something I think that autistic people do, is they tiptoe. Not all of them, but some, and I was one. So I did that until I was 15 years old, and my mother having, Asperger's, what she was diagnosed with, I think was a little more than Asperger. She couldn't stand the noise of even a cabinet. Her sleep was very light too, and she couldn't stand the sound of a cabinet. So, I learned to just leave the cabinets a quarter of an inch open, and because she wouldn't like them left open to avoid making these noises. And it's important to give people with autism the things that they need. It's important to give them the quiet. My mother was really, I think in some ways plagued with her. I think for her it was a disorder because, even a dog barking in the yard next door would cause her distress. She relieved herself by leaving the TV on so that it would white noise the sounds that bothered her out. And I think I just tended to be more easygoing about things, and I think that my parents teaching me to accommodate, they were irritated at noises, so I needed to be quiet. I learned to be quiet. I learned to don't do the things that I wanted to do around them. I wasn't allowed to rock, which I love to rock as I ate, especially as I ate. I needed that really bad, so I learned to disguise my rocking. So I would lean forward and take a bite of food and lean back in my seat, and then lean forward and take a bite of food and sit back in my seat, and for some reason they let me get away with that, and that was good. To this day, I still love to twirl. I, still feel the inclination to walk on my toes. Some habits are broken and don't come back, just like when you stop sucking your thumb, it doesn't come back. But some of it has always been there, and I've kept doing it in secret, and no one has even known that I've done it. I was laying on my bed just the other day, and the vertical blinds were blowing back and forth, and it was dark in the room, and every time the vertical blind swung, it lit a flash of light, and it caught my attention, and I started to tap it, make it go, and as it swung, it lit a flash of light, and then it swung down, and it got dark, and I found that so extremely satisfying, even now. And so getting back to one important thing is it's really not a good idea to take these comforts away from people who have Asperger's. And I think typical people tend to indulge in things like smoking or sports and different things that stimulate them and make them feel comforted. I think that those things would be considered harsh if that was taken away from them and they were expected to live without it. And really, what are people with Asperger's asking? To twirl, to pace, make a little repetitive noise now and then. What's so bad about that, just love people and let them be what they are and enjoy the differences. We don't criticize the tiger for its orange color or the zebra for its orange color. They both have stripes. Giraffes have spots, and nobody questions those differences. So we need to stop questioning these differences in human society. Part of our problem is we're in this scientific discovery age, which is perfectly normal. It's just like a stage that a child goes through in their learning and their discovery. This is human growth. And so we're questioning things, and that's fine. But we want to be careful that we don't do it to the point of hindrance. And let your children who have autism be autistic. It's genetic. You can't change that. What you gotta do if If you don't like the color of your kid's hair, put a wig on them, you know, tell them they have to cut their hair and don't show it, and shave it off, right? That's so ridiculous. So let them be what they are, accommodate and scaffold them is what we need to do. Scaffolding your children's growth is, you know, let them develop, and then you put something in front of them and let them reach and grow toward that, and love and cuddle and kiss them, and let them, they will come out of their shell. I did, and it can be done, but we want to do it in a way that's loving and not forceful. So please get your children tested early, even if they don't look like they have signs. If your doctor's willing to test them, just get it done. It's no big deal, because they can access help, and they can get scaffolding and things that they need if they do. So, and protect them from people who are ignorant as much as you can, because and get them, speak to their teachers. Let them know. I let my daughter's teacher know right away. I don't hesitate to wait, even when there's just signs of it. Say to the teacher, my child has signs of this. I haven't gotten them tested yet. And they try their best to make accommodations. But accommodations are better made when there is a diagnosis. So do your best to get them diagnosed. And it's been another awesome morning trying to talk to you guys again, and hope that these videos help you, and or help somebody that you know. So that's it.